You've been chasing love, success, and validation your entire life. What if that's exactly why they keep slipping away? Every text you overthink, every call you wait for, every person who lost interest the moment you showed yours. Here's the truth nobody tells you. Desperation repels, indifference attracts, and the prize never chases. What if you could reverse the dynamic entirely? Make them pursue, make them wonder, make them work for your attention. 2 questions will haunt you until you answer them. Why do people who care less always win? And what happens when you stop performing and start becoming? This audiobook will rewire how you show up in dating, business, friendships, and self-worth. By the end, you won't need their validation. They'll need yours. Let me tell you about Sarah. She met him at a friend's wedding, and for 3 months, she became a different person. Every morning started the same way. She'd wake up and immediately check her phone, hoping to see his name on the screen. When he texted, her entire day brightened. When he didn't, she'd spiral into a quiet panic, wondering what she'd done wrong. She'd craft the perfect responses, deleting and rewriting them 5 or 6 times before hitting send. She made herself available whenever he wanted to see her, canceling plans with friends, rearranging her work schedule, always saying yes, even when it inconvenienced her. She thought this was love. She thought this was how you showed someone you cared. Then one evening, after she'd sent him 3 messages in a row with no response, her roommate looked at her and said something that changed everything. You know he's not thinking about you right now, right? Like at all. He's probably watching television or out with his friends, completely unbothered. And here you are, checking your phone every 30 seconds. Your entire mood dependent on whether he decides to reply. Sarah felt like she'd been slapped awake. She realized she'd given all her power away. She'd made him the center of her universe, and in doing so, she'd become completely unattractive to him. The more she chased, the more he pulled back. The more she showed interest, the less he valued her. It wasn't because he was a bad person. It was because she'd violated a fundamental law of human psychology. People don't value what comes easy. They don't respect what they don't have to work for. This isn't just about romance. This pattern shows up everywhere in your life. At work, when you over-explain your ideas because you're afraid people won't understand. With friends, when you're always the one reaching out, always the one making plans, always the one who cares more. With family, when you bend over backward trying to earn approval that never quite comes. The common thread, you're in pursuit mode. You're chasing validation, chasing connection, chasing proof that you matter. And the more you chase, the faster it runs from you. Think about the last time you really wanted something from someone. Maybe it was their time, their attention, their commitment, their respect. Did you get it by chasing? Or did it feel like the harder you tried, the further it moved away? The truth is brutal but liberating. Most of us have been trained since childhood to seek external validation. We learned that love and acceptance were conditional, that we had to perform, achieve, and please others to be worthy. Our parents praised us when we got good grades, when we behaved well, when we made them look good. We internalized the message that our worth depends on what others think of us. So we grew up becoming approval-seeking machines, constantly scanning our environment for signs that we're doing it right, that we're enough, that we matter. But here's what nobody told you. That programming is destroying your relationships and sabotaging your potential. When you enter any interaction seeking validation, you broadcast a frequency of neediness. People feel it even if they can't articulate it. They sense your desperation, your lack of self-worth, your willingness to abandon yourself to please them. And it repels them, not because they're cruel, but because neediness is fundamentally unattractive. It signals that you don't value yourself, so why should they? The person who needs nothing from you is infinitely more magnetic than the person who needs everything. This is the paradox you must understand. You get what you want when you stop needing it. You attract respect when you stop seeking it. You become desired when you stop chasing desire. Let's talk about Marcus. He'd been applying to his dream company for 2 years. Every time a position opened up, he'd submit an application with a cover letter that bordered on begging. He'd follow up multiple times, send LinkedIn messages to people he didn't know, essentially communicate through every action that he needed this job desperately. He never got past the first round. Then he got an offer from a competitor, a good offer that valued his skills appropriately. Suddenly, he stopped caring about the dream company. He accepted the new position and threw himself into the work. 6 months later, a recruiter from the original company reached out. They wanted to talk to him about a senior role. In the conversation, Marcus was completely different. He wasn't trying to impress them. He wasn't selling himself. He simply shared what he was working on. what he'd accomplished, and listened to what they had to offer. He told them he'd think about it. He negotiated confidently. He got the job at a higher level and higher salary than he'd ever applied for. What changed? He stopped chasing. He stopped needing their validation. He became the prize they wanted to acquire. This shift in energy is everything. Right now, you're probably operating from a scarcity mindset without even realizing it. You believe that opportunities are limited, that there's only one person who could love you, one job that could fulfill you, one chance to get it right. This belief makes you cling, grasp, and chase. You overfunction in relationships because you're terrified of losing them. You tolerate disrespect because you think you won't find better. You shrink yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. The scarcity mindset is a prison, and you're both the prisoner and the guard. The abundance mindset is different. It recognizes that the universe is full of opportunities, connections, and possibilities. If this person doesn't value you, someone else will. If this job doesn't work out, another one will. If this door closes, 10 more will open. This isn't toxic positivity or delusional thinking. It's a fundamental reorientation to reality. There are billions of people on this planet, thousands of companies hiring, infinite possibilities for connection and success. The only scarcity is in your mind. When you truly internalize abundance, your entire energy changes. You stop grasping. You stop performing. You stop contorting yourself into shapes that aren't you. You become rooted in your own worth, independent of external validation. And that's when you become magnetic. People are drawn to those who are complete within themselves, who don't need anything from anyone. There's a calm confidence that radiates from someone who knows they'll be fine regardless of what happens. That confidence is the foundation of being the prize. Being the prize doesn't mean you're arrogant or superior. It doesn't mean you look down on others or treat people badly. It means you have unshakable self-reference. Your sense of worth comes from within, not from external approval. You don't need others to validate you because you validate yourself. You don't need to prove anything because you already know your value. This is the mindset shift that changes everything. Most people spend their entire lives trying to prove their worth. They accumulate achievements, relationships, possessions, trying to build a case for why they matter. But it never feels like enough because they're seeking validation from the outside, which is an infinite treadmill. There's always someone richer, more attractive, more accomplished. You can never win the comparison game. The only way to win is to stop playing. When you stop trying to prove your worth and simply own it, you become unshakable. Criticism doesn't destroy you because your worth isn't up for debate. Rejection doesn't devastate you because you know it's about fit, not value. Other people's opinions become interesting data points rather than verdicts on your existence. This is where most people get confused. They think being the prize means faking confidence or pretending not to care. It doesn't work because people can sense inauthenticity. True prize energy comes from doing the internal work to actually become someone who doesn't need external validation. It's not a performance. It's a genuine transformation. So how do you make this shift? You start by examining your relationship with yourself. Do you speak to yourself with kindness or criticism? Do you honor your needs or constantly sacrifice them for others? Do you trust yourself or second-guess every decision? Most people treat themselves worse than they'd treat a stranger. They have a vicious inner critic that constantly judges, condemns, and finds them lacking. This inner dialogue becomes the foundation of how you show up in the world. If you don't respect yourself, why would anyone else? The mirror test is simple but profound. People treat you how you treat yourself. If you tolerate disrespect from yourself, you'll tolerate it from others. If you abandon your needs, others will learn they can abandon them too. If you speak to yourself with contempt, you'll accept contempt from the world. But if you treat yourself with respect, set boundaries with yourself, honor your commitments to yourself, the world reflects that back. This isn't magical thinking. It's pattern recognition. People unconsciously pick up on how the reason detachment is so magnetic is that it removes the energy of neediness. When you need something, you're in lack. When you're in lack, you repel. When you want something from a place of wholeness, you're in abundance. When you're in abundance, you attract. Think about someone you know who's genuinely detached. They're probably pleasant to be around. They don't put pressure on you. They don't need you to be different than you are. They're not trying to control outcomes. There's a spaciousness in their presence that feels refreshing. That's the energy of detachment. It says I'm complete with or without this, which paradoxically makes people want to give it to you. How do you cultivate detachment? You start by releasing your grip on outcomes. Right now, you're probably attached to specific results. You need this person to text you back. You need this job offer to come through. You need this situation to work out a certain way. Your happiness is held hostage by circumstances you can't control. This creates anxiety, desperation, and suffering. What if you loosened your grip? What if you acknowledged your preferences without making them requirements? You can want something while simultaneously being okay if it doesn't happen. This isn't giving up. It's growing up. It's recognizing that you can handle any outcome, that your well-being isn't dependent on external circumstances. Practice this with small things first. The next time you text someone, notice the urge to check for a response immediately. Feel the anxiety of waiting. Now consciously release it. Tell yourself it would be nice if they respond, but I'm fine either way. My worth isn't determined by how quickly someone texts back. Do this repeatedly until it becomes your default state. Then apply it to bigger things: job interviews, relationship outcomes, business deals. In every situation, hold your preference loosely. The goal isn't to stop caring. The goal is to stop being controlled by outcomes. There's a Stoic principle that applies here. Control what you can, release what you can't. You can control your effort, your attitude, your integrity. You cannot control other people's responses, decisions, or feelings. When you accept this, you stop wasting energy trying to manipulate outcomes. You do your best, then detach from the results. This doesn't mean you don't take action. It means you take action from a place of inner stability rather than external desperation. Here's something to consider. When you think about the relationships or situations that aren't working in your life, how much of your energy is spent trying to control them? How much mental space do you give to analyzing, strategizing, and manipulating? What would happen if you redirected that energy toward building yourself instead? The people who become the prize aren't focused on getting specific people to like them. They're focused on becoming someone any high-quality person would value. There's a crucial difference. When you focus on one person or one outcome, you become needy. When you focus on becoming your best self, you become magnetic. Let's talk about mystery for a moment. In our hyper-connected world, mystery has become a lost art. People overshare everything on social media. They're constantly available via text. They respond immediately to every message. They volunteer their entire life story on the first date. This destroys attraction because it leaves nothing to discover. The human mind is wired to pursue what it doesn't fully understand. We're naturally curious about gaps, unknowns, and mysteries. When someone reveals everything up front, there's no curiosity, no tension, no pull to learn more. You've given it all away for free. The prize understands that revelation should be gradual. Not because they're playing games, but because they have depth that can't be conveyed in one conversation. They have layers, complexity, and substance that unfold over time. When you interact with them, you leave wanting to know more, not because they're withholding intentionally, but because they simply don't dump everything at once. They're comfortable with silence. They don't fill every pause with nervous chatter. They ask questions and listen more than they talk. They share selectively, giving glimpses of themselves rather than complete exposure. Think about the people you find most intriguing. Chances are they're not the ones posting every meal, every thought, every emotion online. They're not the ones who tell you their entire life story within an hour of meeting. They're the ones with an air of mystery, who seem to have rich inner worlds you'd like to explore. You can cultivate this same quality. Start by being more selective about what you share and when. Not everything needs to be broadcast. Not every thought needs to be spoken. Not every question needs to be answered in full detail. Practice the 70-30 rule. Reveal 70%, keep 30% to yourself. Give enough to create connection, but leave enough to maintain intrigue. In conversation, ask more questions than you answer. When someone asks about you, give a genuine but concise response, then turn the focus back to them. This isn't manipulation. It's simply being more intentional about how you show up. Most people are so eager to be seen and validated that they perform their entire personality up front. They think more is better. But in attraction, less is often more. Strategic unavailability is another aspect of mystery. The prize isn't always available because they have a full life. They have commitments, interests, goals, and priorities that matter to them. They're not sitting around waiting for someone to invite them somewhere. When you're constantly available, you signal that you have nothing better to do, which lowers your perceived value. When you have a full calendar and limited availability, people have to work to get time with you, which increases your value. Again, this isn't about playing games or being artificially busy. It's about genuinely building a life that's so fulfilling that access to you becomes scarce. What are you doing with your time right now? Are you waiting by your phone for someone to reach out? Are you constantly checking social media, hoping for validation? Are you available every time someone asks for your time? regardless of what you had planned. If so, you're training people that your time has no value. The prize treats their time as their most valuable resource. They guard it carefully. They don't give it away to anyone who asks. They prioritize their own goals, growth, and well-being before accommodating others. This doesn't make you selfish. It makes you self-respecting. There's a difference between being available for people you care about when they genuinely need you and being at everyone's beck and call. The prize knows the difference. They show up fully for their priorities, but they don't abandon themselves in the process. When someone wants their time, they evaluate whether it aligns with their values and schedule. If it does, great. If it doesn't, they decline without guilt. They understand that every yes to someone else is a no to themselves unless it's a genuine win-win. Start practicing saying no. This will be uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to people-pleasing. You'll feel guilty. You'll worry about disappointing people. You'll fear they won't like you anymore. But here's what actually happens. When you start saying no to things that don't serve you, you create space for things that do. You filter out people who only valued your willingness to accommodate them. You attract people who respect your boundaries. Your relationships become more genuine because people know when you say yes, you mean it. The language of boundaries is simple. You don't need to over-explain or justify. When someone asks for something you can't or don't want to do, you say, "I can't make that work," or "that doesn't work for me." Full stop. No elaborate explanation. No apology. No negotiation. Just a clear, kind decline. Most people struggle with this because they've been conditioned to believe that saying no makes them bad or selfish. But boundaries are necessary for healthy relationships. Without them, resentment builds. You start feeling used, taken advantage of, disrespected. Then you either explode in anger or withdraw completely. Neither is healthy. Boundaries aren't walls that keep people out. They're gates that filter who gets access and on what terms. The prize has clear boundaries because they value their energy and only want to share it with people who value it too. When someone crosses a boundary, they don't get angry or launch into a long explanation. They simply enforce the consequence. If someone disrespects your time by consistently showing up late, you stop making plans with them. If someone speaks to you disrespectfully, you end the conversation and walk away. If someone makes promises they don't keep, you stop believing their words and watch their actions instead. The key is enforcement, not discussion. Most people set boundaries with their words, but then don't enforce them with their actions. They say, "I won't tolerate being spoken to that way," but then they continue the relationship exactly as before when it happens again. This teaches the other person that your boundaries are negotiable, that they can violate them without consequence. The prize doesn't waste energy explaining boundaries multiple times. They state it once clearly, then enforce it through action. If the behavior continues, access is reduced or removed entirely. This brings us to standards. Your standards are the baseline of behavior, treatment, and energy you're willing to accept in your life. Most people have low standards because they're afraid of being alone or missing out. They tolerate disrespect, inconsistency, breadcrumbs, and mediocrity because they believe something is better than nothing. But raising your standards isn't about becoming picky or judgmental. It's about recognizing that you deserve to be treated with basic respect, consistency, and care. It's about refusing to engage with people who demonstrate through their actions that they don't value you. This means you stop answering late-night texts from people who ignore you during the day. You stop accepting last-minute plans from people who couldn't be bothered to prioritize you. You stop entertaining conversations with people who only reach out when they need something. You stop giving energy to people who don't reciprocate. The standard-setting process is simple. First, identify your non-negotiables. What behaviors, qualities, and treatment are you absolutely unwilling to compromise on? Write them down. Be specific. For example, I require consistent communication. I require respect in how I'm spoken to. I require follow-through on commitments. I require emotional availability. Whatever matters to you, define it. Second, communicate your standards clearly when they become relevant. You don't need to announce them up front, but when a situation arises, you state your expectation calmly and directly. Third, enforce them through your actions. When someone violates a standard, you implement the consequence immediately. Here's what most people get wrong. They try to negotiate their standards. Someone treats them poorly, and instead of walking away, they have a long conversation trying to convince the person to treat them better. They explain why the behavior was hurtful. They give second, third, and fourth chances. They hope the person will change. But high-value people don't beg for respect. They expect it as a baseline, and when it's not present, they remove access. It's not cruel. It's self-preservation. The prize knows their worth is not up for debate. They don't need to convince anyone of it. People either see it or they don't, and those who don't aren't worth the energy. Think about someone you deeply respect. Do you respect them because they begged for it, or because they consistently demonstrated behavior worthy of respect? Respect is earned through action, not negotiation. The same applies to how others respect you. When you stand firm in your standards without apology or explanation, people either rise to meet them or they reveal they're not capable of doing so. Either way, you win. You either get relationships that meet your standards or you free yourself from ones that don't. Now let's address something uncomfortable. You might be realizing that most of your current relationships don't meet your standards. That's normal. When you raise your standards, you often outgrow the people and situations in your life. This can feel lonely and scary. You might worry that you're being too demanding, that you'll end up alone, that nobody will meet these new standards. But here's what actually happens. When you refuse to settle, you create space for higher quality connections. You attract people who operate at your new level. The ones who don't meet your standards fall away, and that's okay. Better to be alone than to be with people who drain, disrespect, or diminish you. Loneliness is temporary. Betraying yourself for company is permanent damage. The prize would rather be alone than compromise their peace. They understand that solitude is not the same as loneliness. Solitude is a rich, full experience when you enjoy your own company. Loneliness is what you feel when you're surrounded by people who don't truly see or value you. Many people are lonelier in their relationships than they would be alone. They stay because they're terrified of the unknown, but the known is slowly killing their spirit. If you're in relationships right now that consistently violate your standards, you have a decision to make. You can continue as you are, hoping things will magically improve, or you can implement boundaries and standards, knowing that the relationship may not survive the shift. Most won't. People who are used to unlimited access to you without effort will resist when you start requiring effort. They'll call you different, distant, cold. They'll try to guilt you back into old patterns. This is a test. Will you honor yourself or abandon yourself to keep the peace? The prize honors themselves, always, without exception. They understand that keeping the peace at the expense of their well-being is not peace at all. It's suppression. It's self-abandonment. It's slow suicide. So they let the relationships that can't evolve fall away. They grieve the loss, but they don't compromise. And eventually they look back and realize those relationships were holding them back from the life they deserved. Let's explore the energy of being the prize in a deeper way. Everything is energy. The thoughts you think, the emotions you feel, the beliefs you hold, all create an energetic signature that others pick up on unconsciously. When you're in chasing mode, your energy is anxious, grasping, and desperate. Even if your words are calm and your actions measured, people feel the underlying neediness. It repels them. When you're in prize mode, your energy is calm, grounded, and self-sufficient. Even if you're actively interested in someone or something, people feel the underlying wholeness. It attracts them. Your nervous system state dictates your energetic signature. When you're dysregulated, operating from fear, anxiety, or scarcity, you emit a frequency of lack. When you're regulated, operating from calm, confidence, and abundance, you emit a frequency of wholeness. People with dysregulated nervous systems attract chaos. People with regulated nervous systems attract stability. So part of becoming the prize is learning to regulate your nervous system regardless of external circumstances. This means you don't react to every text, every interaction, every situation from a place of emotional reactivity. You pause, you breathe, you check in with yourself. You respond from a grounded place rather than a triggered place. When someone disappoints you, you don't spiral into panic or rage. You feel the disappointment, process it, and then decide on your response from clarity. When someone disrespects you, you don't immediately defend yourself or attack back. You notice the disrespect, recognize it as information about them, and calmly remove access. Most people are controlled by their emotions. They feel something and immediately act on it. They're triggered and they lash out. They're anxious and they chase reassurance. They're hurt and they seek revenge. This emotional reactivity keeps them in a constant state of chaos. The prize has emotional mastery. They feel their emotions fully, but they're not controlled by them. They can sit with discomfort without needing to immediately fix it or numb it or project it onto others. This creates a stability that's deeply attractive. How do you cultivate this? Through practices that regulate your nervous system. Meditation, breathwork, mindfulness, journaling, therapy, somatic practices. These aren't optional self-care luxuries. They're essential tools for becoming the kind of person who can hold their center regardless of what's happening around them. When you're grounded in yourself, you become a magnet. People are drawn to your calm. They feel safe in your presence. They trust your stability. Close your eyes for a moment if you're in a safe place to do so. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Hold it for a count of 4, and exhale slowly through your mouth. Do this 3 times. Now imagine yourself 6 months from now. You've done the work in this audiobook. You've shifted from chasing to magnetizing. You walk into a room, and your energy is completely different. You're not scanning for approval. You're not performing for attention. You're simply present, grounded, and at ease with yourself. Notice how your body feels in this visualization. Your shoulders are relaxed. Your breathing is steady. Your posture is open but not eager. You make eye contact without neediness. You smile because you're genuinely content, not because you're trying to please anyone. Someone approaches you, and you engage warmly but without attachment to the outcome. You're enjoying the conversation, but you're not mentally planning the next 10 interactions. You're here now, fully embodied. When the conversation ends, you're not frantically replaying every word. You simply move on to the next moment. This is the energy of the prize. Feel it in your body right now. Remember this feeling. This is what you're building toward. Open your eyes and come back to the present. That visualization isn't fantasy. It's your future if you do the work. Everything you need to become that person already exists within you. You're not trying to become someone else. You're removing the layers of conditioning, fear, and scarcity thinking that have been covering your true self. The prize isn't a persona you adopt. It's who you are when you strip away all the desperate, people-pleasing, validation-seeking behaviors you learned. Let's address one of the most common objections people have when they start doing this work. They say, but if I stop chasing, if I become detached, if I have high standards, won't I end up alone? Won't people think I'm cold or difficult? This fear is what keeps most people stuck in chasing mode. They're terrified that if they don't chase, nothing will happen. No one will pursue them. They'll be forgotten. So they continue to overextend, overfunction, and overgive, hoping it will eventually be reciprocated. Here's the paradox. The fear of being alone is what guarantees you'll attract the wrong people. When you operate from fear of abandonment, you tolerate relationships that are essentially abandonment in slow motion. You're with people physically, but they're not really with you emotionally, mentally, or spiritually. You're in relationships, but you're profoundly lonely. The fear of. Most people never experience this gap because they're terrified of it. They jump from relationship to relationship, situation to situation, never spending time alone with themselves. They don't know who they are outside of other people's validation. So they continue attracting the same low-quality connections over and over, just with different faces. If you want different results, you have to be willing to do things differently. And that means being willing to be alone while you become someone worth being with. Here's what happens during that period of aloneness if you use it correctly. You discover what you actually like versus what you pretended to like to fit in. You develop hobbies, interests, and passions that are genuinely yours. You build a relationship with yourself that's so solid that external validation becomes nice but not necessary. You learn to enjoy your own company. You become someone you respect. And then, from that place of wholeness, you naturally attract people who match your energy. Not because you're trying to attract them, but because you're no longer tolerating those who don't. The prize doesn't fear being alone because they've learned that being with the wrong people is infinitely worse than being alone. They've experienced the suffocation of relationships where they had to shrink themselves to fit. They've felt the exhaustion of constantly performing for approval. They've known the quiet desperation of being with someone who doesn't see them. After experiencing all that, solitude feels like freedom. And from that freedom, they build a life so fulfilling that anyone who wants to enter it has to bring something meaningful to the table. Let's talk about the practical application of all this. How do you actually stop chasing in real time when every instinct is screaming at you to reach out, to explain yourself, to fix things? It starts with catching yourself in the act. The next time you feel the urge to chase, pause. Notice what you're feeling. Usually it's anxiety, fear of loss, or a desperate need for reassurance. Sit with that feeling instead of acting on it. This is crucial. The impulse to chase is your nervous system trying to regulate itself by seeking external validation. But acting on that impulse reinforces the pattern. Breaking the pattern requires sitting with the discomfort without soothing it through chasing. In that pause, ask yourself a few questions. What am I actually afraid of right now? Usually you're afraid of being forgotten, rejected, or deemed unworthy. Now ask, is this fear based on evidence or old wounds? Most of the time, your fear is a historical echo, not a present reality. Finally ask, what would the version of me who is already the prize do right now? That version wouldn't chase. They'd trust that if this person or situation is meant for them, it will unfold naturally. If it's not, something better is coming. This is where the no-contact practice becomes powerful. When someone pulls away or goes silent, every fiber of your being wants to reach out, to fix it, to get clarity. The prize does the opposite. They create space. They go silent too, not as a game or manipulation, but as a genuine reclaiming of energy. They recognize that chasing someone who's pulling away only pushes them further. So they let go. They redirect their energy back to their own life. They trust that if the person comes back, it will be from a genuine place. If they don't, it wasn't meant to be. Implementing no contact is simple, but not easy. When someone ghosts, breadcrumbs, or disrespects you, you stop all contact. No texts, no calls, no checking their social media, no mutual friend inquiries. Complete silence. This serves two purposes. First, it protects your dignity. You're not begging for scraps or explanations. Second, it creates space for them to feel your absence. When you're constantly chasing, they don't miss you. There's no void to miss because you're always there. When you disappear, they finally notice what they had. But here's the critical part. You're not doing no contact to manipulate them into coming back. You're doing it to give yourself space to heal and move on. If they come back, great. You evaluate whether you even want them anymore. If they don't, also great. You've already started building a life without them. The outcome doesn't matter because you're not attached to it. This is the embodiment of detachment. You're releasing control over what happens and focusing on what you can control, which is your own healing and growth. During the no-contact period, you focus on yourself relentlessly. You upgrade your physical health through exercise and nutrition. You upgrade your mental health through therapy and self-reflection. You upgrade your social life by building new connections. You upgrade your career or skills by investing in your growth. You upgrade your environment by creating beauty and order around you. You become so focused on your own evolution that you genuinely forget to check if they've reached out. That's when you know you've shifted. Many people do no contact as a strategy, constantly checking to see if the person has noticed, has reached out, has changed their mind. This isn't true no contact. This is just chasing in a different form. True no contact is an internal shift where you genuinely release that person and situation. You bless them and move on. You wish them well and focus elsewhere. You're not waiting for them to come back. You're building a life that's so good you won't care if they do. Now let's address what happens if they do come back, because they often do. When you stop chasing and genuinely move on, you become interesting again. The person who took you for granted suddenly wonders what happened. They reach out, usually with something casual or testing the waters. This is where most people fail. They're so excited to hear from them that they immediately engage fully, forgetting all the work they've done. They fall right back into old patterns. Don't do this. When someone who ghosted or breadcrumbed you reaches out, your response should be polite but distant. You're not rude or cold, but you're also not eager or available. You might respond after a significant delay. You keep your response brief and neutral. You don't ask questions that extend the conversation. You're essentially communicating through your energy that they no longer have the same access to you. They had access. They wasted it. Now they have to earn it back if you even decide to grant it. This is where your standards come into play. Before you re-engage with anyone from your past, ask yourself why they deserve another chance. What's different now? Have they demonstrated actual change? Or are they just bored or curious? Most importantly, do you even want them back? Or are you just responding out of habit and old attachment? The prize doesn't take people back simply because they returned. The prize evaluates whether this person adds value to their life now. If not, they politely decline and continue forward. Here's something that might surprise you. After you've done this work, after you've genuinely become the prize, you often realize you don't want the people you used to chase. They don't match your new energy. The qualities that attracted you before, neediness and scarcity thinking, no longer appeal. You're drawn to different people now, people who are secure, consistent, and emotionally available. People who don't require games or strategies because they're simply ready for something real. This is how you know the work has taken root. Your taste changes because you've changed. The final piece of becoming the prize is sustaining it long-term. Transformation isn't linear. You'll have days where you slip back into old patterns. You'll catch yourself overanalyzing a text. You'll feel the urge to chase. You'll doubt your worth. This is normal. The difference is that now you have awareness. You catch yourself faster. You course correct more quickly. You have tools and practices that bring you back to center. The maintenance plan is simple. Every morning, before you check your phone or engage with the world, spend 10 minutes grounding yourself in prize energy. Close your eyes and visualize yourself as someone who is already whole, already worthy, already enough. Feel that energy in your body. Carry it into your day. Throughout the day, check in with yourself. When you notice scarcity thinking creeping in, pause and reframe. When you catch yourself about to chase, breathe and redirect. Every evening, journal on your wins and where you honored your standards. Celebrate the progress no matter how small. Every 90 days, do a relationship audit. Look at every person in your life and honestly assess whether they're adding value or draining energy. Are they respecting your boundaries? Are they reciprocating your effort? Are they celebrating your growth or threatened by it? Based on this audit, make decisions. Reduce contact with energy vampires. Deepen connections with those who elevate you. End relationships that consistently violate your standards. This isn't cold or cruel. It's strategic life design. Your energy is limited. You get to choose where it goes. Remember, becoming the prize isn't about getting everyone to like you or approve of you. Many people won't. Some will call you selfish when you start having boundaries. Some will say you've changed when you stop people-pleasing. Some will be uncomfortable with your confidence. Let them be uncomfortable. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. You're not on this earth to make everyone comfortable at the expense of your own well-being. The prize knows that being liked by everyone is impossible and undesirable. If everyone likes you, you're not standing for anything. You're contorting yourself to fit every expectation. You're a shapeshifter with no core identity. The prize would rather be respected by a few than liked by many. The temporary discomfort of change is nothing compared to the permanent pain of staying the same. You've spent years, maybe your entire life, chasing validation and coming up empty. You've given your power away to everyone who asked for it. You've abandoned yourself over and over trying to please others. That ends now. Today is the day you reclaim your power. Today is the day you stop chasing and start magnetizing. Today is the day you become the prize. Think about who you were when you started this audiobook compared to who you're becoming now. There's a shift happening inside you. You're starting to see yourself differently. You're starting to question patterns you always accepted. You're starting to imagine a life where you're not constantly seeking approval. That shift is everything. It's the seed of transformation. Water it with consistent practice, protect it from old patterns, and watch it grow into a completely different life. You don't need to be perfect at this. You just need to be committed. Committed to honoring yourself even when it's hard. Committed to your standards even when it's lonely. Committed to your growth even when others don't understand. The people who are meant for you will find you when you're being your authentic, unfiltered, boundaried self. The opportunities that align with your worth will appear when you stop accepting less. The life you deserve is on the other side of this transformation. Here's the ultimate truth. You've always been the prize. You just forgot. You got conditioned to believe you had to earn your worth through achievement, beauty, people-pleasing, or performance. But worth isn't earned. It's inherent. You were born worthy. Nothing you do or don't do changes that fundamental truth. The work of this audiobook isn't about becoming worthy. It's about remembering that you already are. When you truly internalize this, everything changes. You stop chasing because you realize you have nothing to prove. You start magnetizing because your energy shifts from lack to wholeness. People feel the difference. They're drawn to you not because you're performing, but because you're authentic. They want access to you not because you're begging for theirs, but because you've made yours valuable. This is the natural result of knowing your worth. The journey from chasing to magnetizing isn't about becoming someone else. It's about stripping away all the false beliefs, desperate behaviors, and scarcity thinking that buried your true self. Under all of that, you've always been magnetic. You just couldn't access it because you were too busy performing, proving, and pursuing. Now you know better. Now you can do better. Let me give you a real scenario that illustrates how this works in practice. James had been dating someone casually for 3 months. She was hot and cold, available one week and distant the next. Every time she pulled away, he'd panic and reach out more. He'd send thoughtful messages asking if everything was okay. He'd suggest date ideas. He'd essentially chase harder whenever she withdrew. This pattern repeated for months until one day, after she'd canceled plans for the 3rd time in 2 weeks, James decided to try something different. He didn't respond to her cancellation text. He didn't reach out the next day or the day after. He went completely silent and redirected all that energy into himself. He started going to the gym every morning. He reconnected with friends he'd been neglecting. He signed up for a photography class he'd been putting off. A week passed, then 2. On day 15, she texted him, "Hey stranger, haven't heard from you. What's going on?" Notice what happened there. She was used to him chasing. When he stopped, she felt the absence. For the first time in their entire dynamic, she pursued. James's response was crucial. He didn't jump at the opportunity. He waited several hours and then replied casually, "Been busy with life. How are you?" No explanation. No eagerness. Just polite distance. She asked if he wanted to get together. He said, "Maybe next week. I'll check my schedule and let you know." He didn't commit immediately like he used to. 3 days later, he confirmed plans, but on his terms, a time that worked for him at a place he wanted to go. When they met, she was different. She was more engaged, asking questions about what he'd been up to, clearly trying to reconnect. James was pleasant but not overly invested. He enjoyed the evening but didn't make plans for the next date before leaving. He let her wonder. Within 2 weeks, she'd shifted from hot and cold to consistently warm. She started initiating more. She made herself more available. Why? Because James had finally become the prize. He'd stopped chasing and started living, and that shift in energy changed everything. This brings us to the relapse-proofing plan, because here's what nobody tells you about transformation. You will slip. You will have moments where old patterns resurface. You'll catch yourself about to send that desperate text. You'll feel the urge to explain yourself when someone's upset with you. You'll want to chase when someone pulls away. These moments don't mean you've failed. They mean you're human. The difference between who you were before and who you're becoming is what you do in those moments. Before, you'd act on the impulse automatically. Now, you have a protocol. The relapse prevention protocol has 5 steps. Step 1, notice the urge. The moment you feel that familiar anxiety, that desperate need to reach out or fix something, pause. Name it internally. This is my chasing impulse. Just acknowledging it creates space between stimulus and response. Step 2, feel it physically. Where do you feel the anxiety in your body? Your chest, your stomach, your throat. Breathe into that sensation. Don't try to make it go away. Just observe it. Most people act on impulses because they can't tolerate the discomfort. When you learn to sit with discomfort, you gain control. Step 3, play the scenario forward. If you act on this impulse, what will happen? You'll probably get temporary relief, but then what? Usually the other person pulls back further. You feel worse. The dynamic worsens. Now play the alternative scenario. If you don't act on the impulse, what will happen? You'll feel uncomfortable for a while, but then it passes. You maintain your dignity. You preserve the new dynamic you're building. Step 4, redirect the energy. Instead of channeling your anxiety into chasing, channel it into something productive. Text a friend. Go for a walk. Write in your journal. Work on a project. Move your body. The key is to discharge the anxious energy without directing it at the person or situation. Step 5, celebrate the win. Every time you resist the urge to chase, you're rewiring your brain. Acknowledge that. Tell yourself, I just honored myself. I just chose differently. I'm becoming the prize. These small wins compound into massive transformation. Let's build out a practical day-by-day micro-challenge system that makes this transformation tangible. Day 1, the awareness challenge. Your only job today is to notice every time you seek external validation. Every time you check your phone hoping for a message. Every time you craft a response to impress someone. Every time you adjust your behavior based on someone's reaction. Don't try to change anything yet. Just notice. Write down each instance. By the end of the day, you'll have a clear picture of how often you're giving your power away. Day 2, the delayed gratification challenge. Today you practice waiting. When you want to text someone, wait 30 minutes. When you want to check social media, wait an hour. When someone texts you, wait before responding. You're training yourself to sit with the urge without acting on it immediately. This builds impulse control, which is essential for prize energy. Day 3, the no explanation challenge. Today you don't explain yourself. When you say no, you don't justify it. When someone questions your decision, you don't defend it. When you make a choice, you own it without needing approval. You'll be amazed how uncomfortable this feels at first and how powerful it becomes with practice. Day 4, the self-priority challenge. Today, you do one thing that's purely for you before you do anything for anyone else. Maybe it's a morning workout, reading, journaling, or just sitting with coffee in silence. The point is to start your day by honoring yourself first, not checking messages or jumping into other people's needs. Day 5, the selective sharing challenge. Today you practice mystery. In conversations, you share less than usual. You ask more questions. You leave things unsaid. You don't fill every silence. You become comfortable with people not knowing everything about you. Day 6, The Boundary Enforcement Challenge. Today, when someone crosses a line, you enforce a boundary immediately. No discussion, no second chances, just action. If they disrespect your time, you end the interaction. If they speak to you poorly, you walk away. You're teaching people how to treat you through your actions. Day 7. The Reflection Challenge. Today you review the week. What patterns did you notice? Where did you succeed in choosing differently? Where did you slip into old behaviors? What will you do differently next week? Write it all down. Transformation requires reflection. Week 2 builds on week 1 with deeper challenges. Day 8. The Digital Detox Challenge. Today you don't post anything on social media. You don't check it more than twice. You practice existing without broadcasting or seeking validation online. Notice how your sense of self shifts when you're not performing for an audience. Day 9, the Confident No Challenge. Today you say no to at least 2 things, even if you could technically say yes. You're practicing valuing your time and energy over people-pleasing. The goal isn't to be difficult. The goal is to be selective. Day 10, the Outcome Release Challenge. Today, you engage with someone you care about but release all attachment to their response. You text without needing a reply. You're kind without needing reciprocation. You show up without needing validation. This is detachment in practice. Day 11, the Standard Audit Challenge. Today, you make a list of every relationship in your life. Next to each name, rate how much they respect your time, energy, and boundaries on a scale of 1 to 10. Anyone consistently below a 7 gets reduced access. You're not being harsh. You're being honest about where your energy is going. Day 12, the Power Move Challenge. Today you make one bold move that honors your worth. Maybe you decline a late-night text from someone who only reaches out when it's convenient for them. Maybe you speak up in a meeting when normally you'd stay silent. Maybe you walk away from a conversation that's draining you. Whatever it is, you do something that feels scary but aligned. Day 13, the Self-Sourcing Challenge. Today, you give yourself everything you've been seeking from others. You validate yourself. You encourage yourself. You celebrate yourself. You prove to yourself that you don't need external approval to feel good. Day 14, the Weekly Review. You assess the past 2 weeks honestly. Are you seeing shifts? Are certain people responding differently? Are you feeling more grounded? What needs more work? Transformation is iterative. You adjust as you go. Let me share another story that shows how these principles apply in a professional context. Alicia worked in marketing, and she'd always been the person who said yes to every project, every request, every last-minute ask. She wanted to be seen as a team player, as indispensable, as someone management could count on. But she was burning out. She was working weekends regularly, responding to emails at all hours, and never taking her full vacation days. Her performance reviews were always good, but she hadn't been promoted in 3 years, while colleagues who did less but advocated for themselves more had moved up. One day, after another weekend of work, Alicia decided to implement boundaries. She started by turning off her email notifications after 6 in the evening. She stopped responding to messages outside work hours. When her manager gave her a new project, instead of immediately saying yes, she started saying, "Let me look at my current workload and get back to you." Then she'd evaluate honestly whether she had capacity. If she didn't, she'd say, "I can take this on, but I'll need to deprioritize Project X, or I'll need an extended deadline." Initially, her manager seemed taken aback. Alicia had always been the easy yes, but something interesting happened. Her manager started being more thoughtful about what he assigned her. He stopped giving her the grunt work and started giving her more strategic projects. Why? Because scarcity creates value. When Alicia was always available, her time had no value. When she protected it, suddenly it became valuable. 6 months later, she was promoted. Not because she worked more, but because she finally treated herself like someone whose time and expertise mattered. The pattern is consistent across every context. When you value yourself, others start to value you. When you protect your energy, people stop wasting it. When you enforce boundaries, people respect them. But you have to go first. You can't wait for others to see your worth. You have to demonstrate it through your actions. Now let's talk about the long game, because becoming the prize isn't a one-time transformation. It's a lifestyle. It's a set of daily practices and decisions that compound over time. The people who successfully make this shift and sustain it have rituals that keep them grounded. Every morning they check in with themselves before engaging with the world. They ask questions like, how do I feel today? What do I need to honor myself? What are my non-negotiables for today? This morning check-in sets the tone. It reminds them that they're the priority, not an afterthought. Throughout the day, they practice micro-adjustments. They catch themselves in moments of people-pleasing and course-correct. They notice when they're about to over-explain and stop mid-sentence. They feel the urge to chase and redirect the energy. These micro-adjustments are where the real work happens. Transformation isn't one big dramatic change. It's 1,000 small choices to do things differently. Every evening, they reflect. They journal about what went well and where they struggled. They celebrate the wins and learn from the slips. They recommit to the work. This evening practice creates accountability. It ensures they're not sleepwalking through the transformation, but actively engaged with it. Let me give you some specific journal prompts that will support your transformation. Where did I seek external validation today? How can I give that to myself instead? Where did I compromise my boundaries? What will I do differently next time? Who added energy to my life today? Who drained it? Am I investing my energy wisely? What old patterns showed up today? Did I catch it? Did I choose differently? What's one way I honored myself today? These prompts might seem simple, but they create the self-awareness necessary for lasting change. You can't change what you don't notice. Now let's address a common pitfall. Some people implement these principles but then become rigid and cold. They confuse having boundaries with being closed off. They think being the prize means never being vulnerable or warm. This is a misunderstanding. The prize isn't emotionally unavailable. They're emotionally selective. They're warm with people who've earned it. They're vulnerable in contexts where it's safe and reciprocated. They're generous with their energy for those who value it. The difference is they don't lead with those qualities anymore. They don't overshare on the first date. They don't pour their heart out to someone who hasn't demonstrated they can hold it. They don't give their best energy to people who consistently show they don't appreciate it. Think of it like this. You have a garden of emotional resources. In the past, you let anyone in to take whatever they wanted. Some people picked the flowers carefully and with gratitude. Others trampled through, taking everything and leaving destruction. You didn't differentiate because you wanted everyone to like you. You wanted to be seen as generous and open. But you've learned that indiscriminate openness leads to being taken advantage of. So now you have a gate. People have to show they respect your garden before they get full access. Some people prove themselves worthy through consistency, reciprocity, and care. They get deep access. Others show through their actions that they can't be trusted with full access. They get to stay at the periphery or they're asked to leave entirely. This isn't cruelty. This is wisdom. The prize is discerning. They're not cold. They're calibrated. They match energy. If someone brings consistent respect, they receive warmth and openness. If someone brings inconsistency or disrespect, they receive polite distance. This calibration is what maintains healthy relationships. It ensures you're not giving more than what's reciprocated, which is the recipe for resentment. Let's do a deeper practice right now. Think of someone in your life who consistently takes more than they give. Maybe they only reach out when they need something. Maybe they cancel plans frequently but expect you to always be available. Maybe they talk about themselves endlessly but never ask about you. Hold that person in your mind. Now imagine the next time they reach out. In the past, you'd immediately respond with enthusiasm because you were so grateful for their attention. Now, imagine responding differently. You see their message. You feel that old familiar pull to drop everything and engage. But you pause. You remember your worth. You remember that your energy is valuable. You decide to respond, but not immediately. You respond when it fits your schedule, not theirs. Your response is polite but brief. You don't pour energy into someone who doesn't value it. If they suggest getting together, you're honest about your availability. If their suggestion doesn't work for you, you don't rearrange your life to accommodate it. You either suggest an alternative that works for you, or you politely decline. Notice how this feels in your body. There might be guilt. That's your old programming. There might be fear that they'll stop reaching out. That's your scarcity mindset. Breathe through both. Remind yourself that anyone who only values you when you're convenient doesn't truly value you at all. This practice of imagining new responses prepares you to actually implement them when the moment comes. Here's a month-long implementation plan that takes you from where you are now to fully embodied prize energy. Week 1 is awareness. You're simply noticing patterns without trying to change them yet. You're documenting every time you chase, every time you people please, every time you abandon yourself for approval. This creates a baseline. Week 2 is experimentation. You start trying new behaviors in low-stakes situations. You practice saying no to small things. You delay responses. You enforce minor boundaries. You're building the muscle without the pressure of high-stakes situations. Week 3 is implementation. You start applying these principles to the relationships and situations that matter most. You enforce boundaries with people you care about. You stop chasing in the contexts where you've always chased. Let me share what happens in year 1 of this transformation because the timeline matters. Month 1, you're learning the concepts and starting to implement them. It feels awkward and forced. You're very conscious of the changes you're making. Month 2, you're getting some results. Some people are responding well to your new boundaries. Others are pushing back. You're learning to navigate both. Month 3, you hit your first major test. Someone you really care about violates a boundary significantly. You have to decide whether to enforce your standard or make an exception. This is a defining moment. If you enforce it, you prove to yourself that you're serious about this transformation. If you make an exception, you teach yourself and them that your boundaries are negotiable. Month 4 through 6, assuming you pass the month 3 test, things start to stabilize. Your new way of being becomes more natural. People have adjusted to your boundaries or they've exited your life. You're attracting different energy now. Month 7 through 9, you start to see the compounding effects. Your confidence is noticeably higher. Your relationships are healthier. Your career might be improving because you're advocating for yourself more. You look back at who you were at the start and barely recognize that person. Month 10 through 12, you've integrated the principles so deeply that they're just who you are now. You don't have to think about enforcing boundaries. You just do it automatically. You don't have to remind yourself not to chase. It doesn't even occur to you anymore. You become the prize. But here's what's critical. Even after year 1, you'll have moments that test you. Maybe you meet someone who triggers all your old patterns. Maybe you go through a difficult period and old insecurities resurface. Maybe someone from your past shows up and you're tempted to slip back into old dynamics. These tests never fully stop. They just become easier to navigate. When they happen, you return to the basics. You pause before reacting. You check in with your standards. You remember who you've become and refuse to betray that person for temporary comfort or validation. The relapse prevention plan needs to account for these high-risk situations. Identify your triggers now. Is it a certain type of person? A specific situation? A particular emotional state? For most people, triggers include feeling lonely, feeling rejected, feeling bored, feeling nostalgic for the past, or meeting someone who reminds them of someone who hurt them before. When you know your triggers, you can prepare for them. You create if-then protocols.
If I feel lonely and want to reach out to someone who doesn't value me, then I will call a friend who does instead.
If I feel rejected and want to chase clarity, then I will journal about the feelings until the urge passes. If I meet someone who triggers old patterns, then I will proceed slowly and maintain my boundaries regardless of how much I like them. These protocols remove the need to make difficult decisions in emotionally charged moments. You've already decided how you'll handle these situations. You just follow the protocol. This is how you protect your transformation even when emotions are running high. Let's talk about what changes in your dating life specifically when you embody these principles. In the past, you probably matched with someone and immediately started investing heavily. You texted frequently. You made yourself available. You tried to create momentum. This often backfired because you came across as too eager, too available, too invested too quickly. Now you approach dating differently. You match with someone and you're genuinely curious but not attached. You engage in conversation but you're not trying to force anything. You're evaluating whether they're worth your time, not trying to convince them you're worth theirs. When they suggest meeting, you check your actual schedule instead of immediately clearing it. You suggest something that works for you. If they can't make that work, you don't bend over backward to accommodate. You simply say maybe another time and mean it. On the first date, you show up as yourself. You're not performing or trying to impress. You're assessing fit. You ask questions and actually listen to the answers. You're looking for green flags like consistency, emotional availability, and respectful behavior. You're also watching for red flags like talking only about themselves, being rude to service staff, or love-bombing you with excessive compliments. After the date, you don't immediately text to say you had a great time. You wait. You process. You decide if you actually want to see them again or if you're just responding to attention. If you do want to see them again, you're still measured. You're not texting all day every day. You're not making them the center of your world. You're continuing to live your life fully and allowing them to gradually earn more access. This approach filters out people who aren't serious or who are just looking for someone to give them attention. It attracts people who are actually ready for something real because they recognize you're not playing games. You're simply someone who values themselves. The dynamic is completely different from the start. There's mutual respect. There's balance. There's genuine interest on both sides rather than one person chasing and the other tolerating. In your career, the shift is equally dramatic. You stop accepting lowball offers because you need the job desperately. You negotiate from a place of knowing your value. You're willing to walk away from opportunities that don't meet your standards because you trust that others will come. When you're in a job, you don't overfunction trying to prove your worth. You deliver excellent work within reasonable hours and boundaries. You don't respond to emails at midnight. You don't work every weekend. You don't take on every project. You're strategic about where you invest your energy. This behavior actually accelerates your career rather than hindering it because you're not burning out. You're sustainable. You're focused on high-impact work rather than busy work. Management notices. They see someone who values themselves, and they start to value you more too. When it's time to ask for a raise or promotion, you do it from a place of worthiness rather than hoping. You present your case confidently. You've documented your wins. You know what you've contributed. You state what you want without apology. If they can't meet it, you don't stay and resent them. You start exploring other options. You're not reactive or emotional. You're simply clear that you need to be valued appropriately. Often this clarity and willingness to walk away is what gets you the raise. But even if it doesn't, you leave for something better rather than staying somewhere that undervalues you. Let's create a troubleshooting guide for common obstacles people face during this transformation. Obstacle 1, guilt. You'll feel guilty for setting boundaries, for saying no, for choosing yourself. This guilt comes from years of conditioning that told you your needs matter less than others. The solution is to reframe. Guilt is not a reliable indicator of wrongdoing. It's often just your old programming resisting change. When you feel guilt for honoring yourself, recognize it. Thank it for trying to keep you safe, and do the thing anyway. The guilt diminishes with repetition. Obstacle 2, loneliness. When you stop tolerating low-quality relationships, there's often a period of loneliness before higher-quality ones arrive. This can make you want to go back to old patterns. The solution is to befriend your solitude. Use this time to build yourself. Develop hobbies. Invest in your growth. Become someone you genuinely enjoy spending time with. The loneliness is temporary. Settling for poor treatment is permanent. Obstacle 3, doubt. You'll have moments where you wonder if you're being too picky, too rigid, too demanding. You'll see other people accepting less and wonder if you should too. The solution is to stay anchored in your why. Why are you doing this work? Because you deserve to be valued. Because you're tired of feeling small. Because you want relationships that honor you. When doubt creeps in, reconnect with that why. Remember who you were before you started this work and how much you were suffering. You're never going back there. Obstacle 4, old patterns with new people. You'll meet someone new and slip into old behaviors because the person triggers you. Maybe they're emotionally unavailable like someone from your past. Maybe they're charming in a way that disarms you. The solution is to catch it early. When you notice yourself chasing or people-pleasing with someone new, pause. Ask yourself if this is about them or about old wounds. Usually it's the latter. Commit to doing it differently this time, even if it means the connection doesn't work out. Obstacle 5, people from your past reappearing. Ex-partners, old friends, or former connections will often resurface when you're doing this work. It's like they sense the shift in your energy. They'll reach out casually, testing if they can get access again. The solution is to be ruthlessly honest about whether these people deserve a place in your new life. Most don't. They had their chance and they wasted it. You're not obligated to give them another one just because they're bored or curious. Politely decline and keep moving forward. Here's a powerful reframe that helps with all of these obstacles. You're not doing this work to get specific people to choose you. You're doing this work to become someone who only attracts people worthy of you. It's a filter, not a strategy. Some people will fall away. That's the point. They weren't aligned with your highest good. The right people, the ones who can meet you at this level, will appear. Let me give you one more detailed scenario. Keisha had been friends with the same group of women since college. They'd been close for over a decade. But as Keisha grew and changed, she started noticing patterns that bothered her. The group dynamic was gossip-heavy. There was a lot of complaining, but very little problem-solving. When Keisha shared her wins, there was more jealousy than celebration. When she set boundaries, like not being available for hours-long phone calls in the middle of her workday, they made her feel guilty. She started to realize that these friendships had been based on her being the listener, the advice giver, the one who was always available. She was serving a function, not being valued as a whole person. When she tried to shift the dynamic by sharing more about her life and being less available, they resisted. They said she changed. She'd gotten too busy for them. She thought she was better than everyone now. Keisha had a choice. She could shrink back down to keep the friendships comfortable, or she could honor who she'd become and accept that some friendships have expiration dates. She chose herself. She didn't make a big announcement or cut everyone off dramatically. She simply started investing her energy differently. She still showed up for important events, but she stopped being available for the daily drama. She stopped being the therapist friend. She started building new friendships with women who were growing in similar directions, women who celebrated her wins, women who had their own full lives and didn't need her to be their emotional support system. Within 6 months, the old friendships had naturally faded. There were a few awkward moments, but mostly it was just a quiet drifting. Keisha mourned what those friendships had been, but she didn't regret choosing herself. Her life was fuller, her energy was better, and her new friendships were reciprocal and life-giving. This is what often happens. You outgrow relationships that were based on old versions of you. It's sad but necessary. You can't stay small to make others comfortable. As we move toward the close, I want to make sure you understand that this work is not about perfection. You're going to have bad days. You're going to slip into old patterns. You're going to make mistakes. That's part of being human. The goal is not to never mess up. The goal is to mess up less frequently, catch yourself faster, and course correct more effectively. Progress, not perfection. Every time you choose differently, even if it's uncomfortable, you're rewiring your brain. You're creating new neural pathways. You're teaching yourself that you're safe even when you're not people-pleasing. You're proving to yourself that you can handle discomfort. You're building evidence that you're worthy regardless of external validation. Here's your final 30-day intensive challenge to lock in this transformation. Day 1, delete or mute anyone on social media who makes you feel less than. Day 2, say no to one thing you would normally say yes to out of obligation. Day 3, send a boundary-setting message to someone who's been crossing lines. Day 4, spend 30 minutes doing something purely for your own enjoyment. Day 5, list 10 qualities that make you valuable, unrelated to achievements. Day 6, delay all non-urgent responses for at least 2 hours. Day 7, reflect on the week and celebrate every win. Day 8, unfollow all accounts that trigger comparison or inadequacy. Day 9, decline an invitation without explaining why. Day 10, practice sitting with uncomfortable emotions for 10 minutes without distracting yourself. Day 11, reach out to someone who adds value to your life and tell them you appreciate them. Day 12, identify one relationship that drains you and reduce contact. Day 13, do something physically challenging to prove to yourself you can do hard things. Day 14, mid-month reflection, note what's shifting. Day 15, go an entire day without seeking any external validation. Day 16, make a decision without asking for anyone's opinion. Day 17, spend money on something that enhances your life without guilt. Day 18, practice confident body language for an entire day, shoulders back, eye contact, relaxed posture. Day 19, write a letter to your future self describing who you're becoming. Day 20, enforce a boundary even though it's uncomfortable. Day 21, reflect on 3 weeks of transformation. Day 22, audit your relationships and adjust your energy investment accordingly. Day 23, do one thing that scares you socially. Day 24, practice mystery in conversations, reveal less than usual. Day 25, treat yourself the way you want others to treat you. Day 26, say something you've been afraid to say. Day 27, remove yourself from a situation that doesn't honor you. Day 28, visualize yourself 1 year from now, fully embodied as the prize. Day 29, make a list of standards you'll never compromise again. Day 30, celebrate the entire month and commit to the next phase of growth. These 30 days will change you if you actually do them, not think about them, not plan to do them. Actually do them. Each challenge builds on the previous one, gradually expanding your capacity to honor yourself. By day 30, you'll be someone who barely recognizes the person who started day 1. That's the point. Now let's talk about what happens when someone you've implemented boundaries with tries to test them. This is inevitable, and it's one of the most critical moments in your transformation. Let me tell you about David. He'd been seeing someone for 2 months who had a pattern of canceling plans at the last minute. It happened once, he let it slide. It happened twice, he mentioned it bothered him. The third time it happened, David implemented a clear boundary. He said, I understand things come up, but I need consistency. If you commit to plans with me, I need you to honor that commitment unless it's a genuine emergency. She agreed. 2 weeks later, she texted him an hour before their dinner plan saying something came up with work and she couldn't make it. This was the test. The old David would have said no problem, let's reschedule, secretly feeling disrespected but afraid to rock the boat. The new David responded differently. He said, I hear you. I'm going to take some space to think about whether this is working for me. Then he went silent. He didn't engage in back and forth. He didn't accept her explanations or promises to do better. He simply removed his attention and energy. 3 days passed. She reached out multiple times, increasingly concerned. He finally responded, I've thought about it, and I've decided I need someone who can be consistent. I don't think this is a good fit. She was shocked. She tried to convince him to give her another chance. She promised she'd changed. She said she didn't realize how serious he was. But David held firm. He said, I appreciate you saying that, but I've made my decision. He wished her well and moved on. Here's what's crucial about this story. David didn't do this to manipulate her into behaving better. He did it because he genuinely valued himself too much to continue with someone who repeatedly showed through actions that they didn't value his time. And here's what happened 6 months later. He met someone who never canceled on him, who was excited to see him, who made plans and kept them. He realized that what he'd been accepting before wasn't normal or acceptable. It was just all he'd known. This pattern repeats in every area of life. When you enforce boundaries, some people will adjust and some will exit. Both outcomes are good. The ones who adjust prove they're capable of treating you well when there are consequences for not doing so. The ones who exit prove they were never right for you in the first place. Either way, you win by honoring yourself. Let's go deeper into the psychology of why chasing repels and detachment attracts. There's a concept in psychology called intermittent reinforcement. It's when rewards are given unpredictably and inconsistently. This creates the strongest behavioral conditioning, stronger than consistent reward or consistent punishment. It's why gambling is so addictive. You don't know when the payoff is coming, so you keep trying. When you chase someone, you're giving them consistent attention and validation. There's no intermittent reinforcement. They know exactly what they're getting from you and when. This creates complacency, not desire. When you're detached and inconsistent in your availability and attention, you create intermittent reinforcement. They don't know when they'll get your energy, so they value it more when they do. This isn't about playing games. This is about genuinely having a full life where you're not constantly available because you have other priorities. The byproduct is increased attraction because you've become unpredictable in the best way. You're not a sure thing. You're someone they have to work to connect with. Now I want to address a specific scenario many people struggle with. What do you do when you've already been chasing someone for weeks or months and you want to shift the dynamic? Can you recover from having already shown too much interest? The answer is yes, but it requires a hard reset. You implement what I call the strategic withdrawal. You go completely silent without explanation or announcement. No, I need space text. No, I'm working on myself message. You just stop engaging entirely. This will feel cruel to you at first because you've been conditioned to believe you owe people explanations. You don't. If someone has been taking you for granted, you don't owe them a roadmap for why you're withdrawing. You simply do it. During this withdrawal period, which should be at minimum 30 days, but ideally 62, what usually happens during this time? They notice. Around week 2 or 3, they'll typically reach out. Something casual. Hey, how have you been? Or they'll react to your social media if you're posting. Most people fail at this point because they're so relieved to hear from the person that they engage immediately and enthusiastically. Don't do this. If you respond at all during the withdrawal period, it should be days later and extremely brief. Busy with life. Hope you're well. That's it. No questions. No engagement. Then you go silent again. This communicates that you've genuinely moved on, that your life is full without them. Around week 4 to 6, if they were at all interested, they'll escalate. They'll try harder to get your attention. They might ask to see you. This is still not the time to engage. You're not ready yet. You haven't fully transformed. Continue the withdrawal. By week 8 to 12, you're different. You've genuinely detached. You've built new neural pathways. You've proven to yourself that you're fine without them. Now, if they reach out again, you can decide if you even want to respond. Many people at this point realize they don't. The person they were obsessed with 12 weeks ago now seems small, unimpressive, not worth the energy. If you do decide to engage, you do so as a completely different person. You're not the chaser they remember. You're someone who has options, standards, and boundaries. Here's a specific script for if you do re-engage after the withdrawal period. They say, I've been thinking about you. Want to get together? You don't say yes immediately. You say maybe. I'll check my schedule and let me know what you have in mind. You're not mean, but you're not eager. They suggest something. If it doesn't work for you, you don't bend. You say, That doesn't work for me. I'm free on X day at Y time if that works for you. You're requiring them to adjust to you. When you do meet, you're warm but not overinvested. You're curious about what they've been up to, but you're not hanging on every word. You share some of what you've been doing, but you leave mystery. When the date or hangout ends, you don't make plans for the next one. You say, "This was nice, let's see what happens." You leave them wanting more. From that point forward, you maintain the new dynamic. You're never more invested than they are. You match energy. You maintain your standards. If they slip back into old patterns, you implement boundaries immediately. Most importantly, you're genuinely okay if it doesn't work out because you've proven to yourself that you're whole without them. Let me share another real example. Tanya had been in a relationship for 3 years where she was doing most of the emotional labor. She was the one planning dates, initiating difficult conversations, remembering important occasions, keeping the relationship alive. Her partner was passive, taking whatever she gave but never reciprocating the effort. Tanya tried talking about it multiple times. He'd agree to do better, would improve for a week or two, then slip back into old patterns. Finally, Tanya realized talking wasn't working. She needed to change her behavior, not try to change his. She stopped planning dates. She stopped initiating conversations about the relationship. She stopped putting in effort that wasn't reciprocated. At first, he didn't notice. He was comfortable with the way things were. But after 2 weeks of Tanya not doing the usual work, cracks appeared. They barely saw each other because she wasn't organizing hangouts. They weren't talking about important things because she wasn't bringing them up. The relationship was coasting on fumes. 3 weeks in, he noticed something was off. He asked if everything was okay. Tanya said, "I'm fine. I've just been thinking about what I need from a relationship and whether this is meeting those needs." He got defensive. "What's that supposed to mean?" She stayed calm. "It means I need a partner who puts in equal effort. I've been doing most of the work to keep this relationship going, and I'm not willing to do that anymore." He said he'd try harder. She said, "I've heard that before. I need to see sustained change, not temporary effort." Then she went quiet. She let him sit with it. Over the next month, he did step up. He started planning dates. He initiated important conversations. He put in effort. But here's the interesting part. Tanya realized something during that month. She'd changed. She'd gotten used to not having to carry the relationship. She'd enjoyed having her energy back. When she looked at his efforts, they felt like too little too late. She'd grown beyond the relationship. She ended it. Not out of anger or revenge, but out of clarity. She'd become someone who wouldn't accept being the only one trying, and he'd proven for 3 years that he wasn't capable of being an equal partner. This story illustrates an important point. Sometimes implementing boundaries doesn't save the relationship. It shows you that the relationship wasn't worth saving. Now let's create a detailed relapse prevention plan because this is where most people fail. They do the work, they see results, then something happens that triggers old patterns and they slide backward. The key to preventing relapse is recognizing the warning signs early and having a protocol for each one. Warning sign 1, obsessive thinking about someone who's pulled away. You find yourself constantly wondering what they're doing, checking for messages, replaying interactions. The protocol is cognitive redirection. Every time you catch yourself obsessing, you physically move your body. Do 20 push-ups or go for a 5-minute walk. This interrupts the thought pattern and reconnects you with your body. Warning sign 2, the urge to reach out for closure or clarity. You want to text them asking where you stand or what happened. The protocol is the 24-hour rule. You wait 24 hours before sending any message. Usually the urge passes. If it doesn't after 24 hours, you write out the message, read it, and ask yourself if this is coming from a place of strength or weakness. If it's weakness, you delete it and wait another 24 hours. Warning sign 3, lowering your standards because you're lonely or impatient. You find yourself considering re-engaging with someone who didn't meet your standards. The protocol is the list review. You pull out the list you made of your non-negotiables and read it out loud. Then you write down all the reasons this person didn't meet those standards. You remind yourself why you walked away. Warning sign 4, people-pleasing behavior resurfaces in new relationships. You catch yourself saying yes when you mean no, over-explaining, or abandoning your needs. The protocol is the immediate correction. The moment you notice it, you stop mid-action and course correct. If you already said yes but meant no, you follow up within an hour saying, "Actually, I need to reconsider. I can't commit to that." Warning sign 5, seeking validation through social media or dating apps. You're posting more, fishing for likes, swiping compulsively. The protocol is the digital detox. You delete the apps for 48 hours minimum. You turn off social media notifications. You prove to yourself that your worth isn't tied to digital validation. These protocols need to be written down and kept somewhere accessible. When you're in an emotionally triggered state, your rational brain isn't running the show. Your emotional brain is. Having predetermined protocols removes the need to make good decisions in bad moments. You simply follow the script you created when you were thinking clearly. Let's go even deeper with specific challenging scenarios and exactly how to handle them. Scenario 1, someone you're dating goes cold after you've been seeing them consistently. They're taking longer to respond, they're less available, the energy has shifted. Your instinct is to ask what's wrong or try harder. Don't. Instead, match their energy. If they take 6 hours to respond, you take 6 hours. If they're less available, you become less available too. You're mirroring, not chasing. Usually this results in 2 outcomes. Either they notice the shift and re-engage because they realize they're losing you, or the connection fades naturally. Both are acceptable because you maintained your dignity. Scenario 2, an ex reaches out months or years later wanting to reconnect. They're friendly, nostalgic, testing the waters. Your instinct might be to engage because of history or curiosity. Before you do, run through a mental checklist. Why did the relationship end? Have those issues been resolved? What's different now? Are they reaching out because they've genuinely changed or because they're bored, lonely, or going through something? In most cases, the answers reveal that nothing has fundamentally changed. They're just cycling back to see if you're still available. Your response should be polite but disinterested. It's nice to hear from you. I hope you're well. That's it. No questions. No door left open. Scenario 3. Someone breadcrumbs you with sporadic attention, just enough to keep you interested, but not enough to build anything real. They text you late at night. They're interested when they have nothing else going on. They vanish for weeks, then reappear like nothing happened. Your instinct might be to accept the scraps because something feels better than nothing. This is a trap. The protocol is the immediate cutoff. The first time someone breadcrumbs you after having disappeared, you don't respond. You treat their sporadic attention the same way you'd treat spam. Delete and move on. If you do respond, you're training them that breadcrumbing works. Scenario 4. You're interested in someone and you're not sure if you're showing too much interest or not enough. This is where most people spiral into overthinking. Now let's talk about the specific language patterns that communicate prize energy. First, remove qualifiers from your speech. Stop saying I think, maybe, possibly, sort of, kind of. These words weaken your statements. Instead of I think we should meet on Tuesday, say I'm available Tuesday. Instead of maybe we could try this, say let's try this. Speak declaratively. Second, stop apologizing for existing. Don't start sentences with sorry, but don't apologize for having preferences, needs, or boundaries. Third, embrace silence. You don't need to fill every pause in conversation. Comfortable silence communicates confidence. When someone asks you a question, pause before answering. This shows you're thoughtful, not desperate to please. Fourth, use fewer words. Brevity communicates certainty. Long explanations communicate insecurity. When you set a boundary, one sentence is enough. When you decline something, no is a complete sentence. Fifth, remove the question mark from your statements. Many people turn statements into questions because they're seeking approval. I was thinking we could go to this restaurant. No, make it a statement. I'd like to try this restaurant. If they don't like it, they can suggest an alternative. You're not asking permission. You're stating a preference. These language shifts might feel uncomfortable at first. You might worry you're being rude or cold. You're not. You're being clear and confident. People respond to clarity. They respect boundaries that are communicated without apology. Practice these language patterns in low-stakes situations first. With a barista, a cashier, a coworker on a minor issue. Notice how people respond. They don't react negatively. They often respond with more respect because you've communicated self-respect. Let's create a 90-day intensive transformation protocol that goes beyond the 30-day challenge. Days 1 through 30, you focus on awareness and basic implementation as we discussed. Days 31 through 60, you go deeper. Day 31, identify your 3 biggest fears about being alone. Write them down, and beside each one, write evidence from your life that disproves the fear. Day 32, reach out to someone from your past that you owe an apology to and make amends. This is about clearing old energy, not about them. Day 33, invest in yourself financially. Buy a course, hire a coach, get that gym membership. Put money behind your transformation. Day 34, have a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. State your truth without apologizing for it. Day 35, end one relationship that's been draining you for months or years. Do it clearly and kindly, but finally. Day 36, spend an entire day alone doing things you enjoy. No phone, no distractions, just you. Day 37, write a letter to your younger self explaining what you've learned. Day 38, create a vision board for your life 1 year from now. Day 39, start a daily meditation practice, even if it's just 5 minutes. Day 40, audit your social media follows and unfollow anyone who doesn't inspire or educate you. Day 41, learn a new skill. Sign up for a class or workshop. Day 42, mid-phase reflection. What's different about you now versus day 1? Day 43, practice saying no to 5 different things today without explanation. Day 44, do something that terrifies you socially. Speak up in a meeting, approach someone you find interesting, whatever stretches you. Day 45, write down your ideal partner or friendship qualities. Then assess if you embody those qualities yourself. Day 46, clean out your physical space. Your environment reflects your internal state. Day 47, make a list of everyone you're waiting to hear from. Then commit to not checking if they've reached out for 1 week. Day 48, invest time in your appearance. Not for others, but because you deserve to feel good in your body. Day 49, have a difficult conversation with yourself about ways you've been betraying your standards. Day 50, set a boundary with a family member. This is often the hardest boundary to set. Day 51, celebrate how far you've come. Do something special for yourself. Day 52, assess your career. Are you being valued appropriately? If not, start exploring options. Day 53, deepen one high-quality relationship. Invest time in someone who's been there for you. Day 54, write down 10 things you're proud of yourself for. Day 55, take a risk on something you've been afraid to try. Day 56, practice receiving compliments without deflecting. Just say thank you. Day 57, examine your relationship with money. Do you value yourself enough to charge what you're worth or ask for what you deserve? Day 58, address a physical health issue you've been ignoring. Book that appointment. Day 59, write a list of people who've wronged you and practice forgiveness. Not for them, for you. Day 60, major checkpoint. You're 2/3 through the 90 days. You're not the same person who started. Days 61 through 90, you focus on integration and sustainability. Day 61, create a weekly schedule that reflects your priorities, not everyone else's. Day 62, evaluate your friendships. Who's adding value? Who's taking? Adjust accordingly. Day 63, practice outcome independence in one high-stakes situation. Day 64, spend an hour planning the next quarter of your life with specific goals. Day 65, have a difficult conversation with someone about how they've been treating you. Day 66, celebrate your wins from the past 2 months publicly. Post about your growth journey. Day 67, assess your boundaries. Where are they solid? Where do they need reinforcing? Day 68, do something generous for someone who can't repay you. Abundance mindset in action. Day 69, write about who you're becoming and why it matters. Day 70, practice mystery in all your interactions today. Day 71, make a decision you've been putting off because you were afraid. Day 72, audit how you spend your time. Is it aligned with who you're becoming? Day 73, enforce a boundary that will likely cost you a relationship. Do it anyway. Day 74, spend money on an experience that enriches your life. Day 75, practice confident body language all day. Notice how people respond. Day 76, write your personal manifesto. What do you stand for? What won't you tolerate? Day 77, plan something exciting for your future. Give yourself something to look forward to. Day 78, reach out to 3 new people. Expand your network. Day 79, address an addiction or unhealthy coping mechanism you've been avoiding. Day 80, practice gratitude for the hard lessons you've learned. Day 81, final preparation week. Review everything you've learned. Day 82, create your post-90-day maintenance plan. What daily practices will you keep? Day 83, write a letter to yourself to read on day 180. What do you hope to accomplish in the next 90? Day 84, forgive yourself for all the times you abandoned yourself in the past. Day 85, celebrate someone else's success without comparison or jealousy. Day 86, make a bold move in your career or business. Day 87, reflect on the person you were 90 days ago versus who you are now. Day 88, share your transformation with someone who needs to hear it. Day 89, commit to your standards for life, not just for 90 days. Day 90, celebration day. You've become the prize. Now live like it. This 90-day protocol isn't optional if you're serious about transformation. It's the deep work that most people avoid because it's uncomfortable. But discomfort is where growth happens. Every single one of these daily challenges is designed to stretch you, to break old patterns, to install new behaviors. You can't just read this and expect to change. You have to do the work. Now let's address what happens when you succeed, when you truly become the prize, because that brings its own challenges. First, you'll attract people who are intimidated by your standards. They'll call you too much, too picky, too demanding. Don't second-guess yourself. These are people who want access to you without earning it. They're revealing their own limitations, not yours. Second, you'll lose people you thought would be there forever. This will hurt. Grieve it, but don't regret it. They couldn't evolve with you. That's about them, not you. Third, you'll have moments of loneliness that make you question if this was worth it. In those moments, remember the alternative. Remember how it felt to be surrounded by people who didn't value you. Remember the quiet desperation of being with someone while feeling utterly alone. The loneliness of transformation is temporary. The loneliness of betraying yourself is permanent. Fourth, you'll be tested repeatedly. People from your past will resurface. New people will test your boundaries to see if they're real. Each test is an opportunity to prove to yourself that you've changed. Fifth, you'll realize you don't want many of the things you used to chase. The person you were obsessed with 6 months ago now seems ordinary. The job you thought you needed now seems beneath you. This isn't arrogance. This is growth. Your standards evolved because you evolved. Here's what sustainable prize energy looks like. You wake up and your first thoughts are about your day, your goals, your life. Not about whether someone texted you. You move through your day with purpose and presence. You're engaged with what you're doing, not mentally consumed by relationship dynamics. When someone reaches out, you're genuinely pleased to hear from them, but your mood doesn't hinge on it. When someone doesn't reach out, you don't spiral into anxiety or self-doubt. You simply continue with your life. When someone treats you poorly, you address it calmly or remove yourself entirely. You don't react emotionally. You respond strategically. When opportunities arise, you evaluate them based on alignment with your values, not based on scarcity or fear. When relationships end, you process the loss and move forward. You don't cling to what's gone or chase what's left. This is the sustainable state. It's not about never caring. It's about caring without attachment. It's about being invested without being controlled. It's about having preferences without having requirements. This is freedom. Let me give you one final story that encapsulates this entire transformation. There was a woman named Lisa who'd spent 35 years being the nice one, the accommodating one, the one everyone could count on. She'd been in relationships where she did all the emotional work. She'd had friendships where she was always available but rarely prioritized. She'd had jobs where she was overworked and undervalued. She was exhausted and resentful but didn't know how to change because being nice was her entire identity. Then something shifted. She couldn't pinpoint the exact moment, but she woke up one day and realized she didn't want to live like this anymore. She didn't want to be 45, 50, 60, still giving herself away for scraps of appreciation. So she started small. She said no to a request from a friend without explaining why. The friend was surprised, but accepted it. Lisa felt guilty for days, but she didn't cave. The next week, she set a boundary at work. She stopped answering emails after 6 in the evening. Her boss noticed, but couldn't really complain because Lisa was still exceeding expectations during work hours. The week after, she ended a romantic situation that had been going nowhere for months. The guy was shocked. He'd gotten comfortable having her around without committing. She told him she needed more, and if he couldn't provide it, they were done. He tried to negotiate. She didn't engage. She just walked away. Over the next year, Lisa's life transformed. She lost several friendships that had been one-sided. She ended up leaving her job for a better opportunity where her skills were valued. She dated several people but didn't settle into a relationship until she met someone who matched her effort. Most importantly, she became someone she respected. She looked in the mirror and liked who she saw. Not because she was perfect, but because she was finally honoring herself. The guilt eventually faded. The fear of being alone was replaced by the joy of being selective. The anxiety of wondering if she was enough was replaced by the certainty that she was. Lisa became the prize, not for anyone else, for herself. As we close, I want you to make yourself a promise. Promise that you will never again abandon yourself for someone else's approval. Promise that you will honor your boundaries even when it costs you relationships. Promise that you will treat yourself with the same respect you demand from others. Promise that you will never again beg for scraps when you deserve the whole meal. Promise that you will become someone you're proud of, regardless of who's watching. These promises are sacred. They're the foundation of your new life. You started this audiobook chasing, texts unanswered, respect withheld, worth questioned. You end it as the prize. Unbothered, unmoved by breadcrumbs, undeniable in your presence. The people who overlooked you will notice. The ones who disrespected you will regret. But here's the twist. You won't care anymore. You've become someone who doesn't need their validation because you've given it to yourself. The game isn't about making them chase. It's about becoming someone worth chasing. And once you embody that, you'll never settle for anything less again. Welcome to your new standard. Welcome to being the prize.